Alice. I'm recording in progress. Well, how about that? Thank you for having me, y'all. I really appreciate this. And Alice has been so patient with me because she's like, just pick a passage. And life's been just nutty. And I was just like, just pick one. And she's gave me the great one, the greatest one there is. So sought through prayer and meditation. My name's Marti Ruby. I'm an alcoholic. That's probably some good information. I have a sobriety date of October the 19th of 1989, and I'm as grateful as I know how to be about that. And I say that not so that you go, oh my God, isn't she amazing? But that so you can say, if it happened for her, it can happen for me. Because, I at 7:10 in Buda, Texas, I shouldn't be sitting here sober on a Zoom meeting talking to you. But by the grace of God, I get to be here. So I'm going to talk, I like to, wonk out sometimes, and I'm going to see what happens. But, I was thinking about this, that we talk all the time about, I want to be unblocked. I want to be unblocked. I want to be in the sunlight. I want to be unblocked. And so, but what does that actually mean? What is the practical aspect of that really? And, it's like, we've got to clear away the wreckage. We've got to empty. We got to become this vessel. We've got to become a hollow bone. We've got to clear away the wreckage of the past. And it talks about, that though when we start the 4-step, it says, though our 3rd step decision was a vital and crucial step, it'll have little permanent effect unless at once followed by a strenuous effort to face and be rid of the things in ourselves which are blocking us. So I kind of went through the book this afternoon and looked at all the ways it talks about getting unblocked. Like what does that mean, rather than, because a lot of times I want to say, whether I'm doing a 6 and a 7 or a 10 or 11 or all this stuff, I think there's not going to be anything arduous about it, or that it's going to be very simple, and I'm going to sit here and wish for it, and pixie dust is going to sprinkle over my head, and voila, I will be changed and transformed. And that's not been my experience. That's not been my experience at all. What I get to do when I'm looking for this change, this transformation, this personality change sufficient to overcome alcoholism, is what I have to do is swallow and digest large chunks of truth about myself. And that can be a very painful undertaking at times. But at the end of the day, it's also the path to freedom. And so I'm really glad about that. So, as I go through my book here, it's, I went to page 27, and it has that great conversation where the doctor and the alcoholic are having that conversation, and the alcoholic just says, "Is there no exception? You have the mind of a chronic alcoholic. I've never seen anybody recover." Never seen anybody recover. So, the friend feels as though the gates of hell of clanging. Is there no exception? He says, yeah. All you need, is a vital spiritual experience. No big deal. No big deal. That's all it's going to take is a vital spiritual experience. But it goes on to me to describe the psychic change that's required. And it says ideas, emotions, and attitudes which were once the guiding forces of the lives of these men are suddenly cast to one side, and a completely new set of conceptions and motives begin to dominate them. So what does that mean? It's like a lot. But, I started off by saying, the woman that sits before you today has nothing to do with the woman that came in here 34 years ago. So like ideas and emotions and attitudes have been cast out, completely transformed. What I valued then, it has nothing to do with what I value now. Did I value a spiritual experience when I was drinking? No. And yet today it's the most important thing in my life. Along with things like peace of mind and things like kindness and love. This is not what I was looking for in 1989. It goes on to page 39 that says actual or potential alcoholic will be absolutely unable to stop drinking on the basis of self-knowledge, right? And this is a point we wish to emphasize and re-emphasize and to smash home upon our alcoholic readers as it has been revealed to us through bitter experience. That's one of the things I'm just so enchanted with Alcoholics Anonymous these days, is that when I walk into a meeting, when I log on to a meeting, when I go anywhere Alcoholics Anonymous lives, I walk into a room, and even if I've never met you, I know you. I know you. You drank like me, and you're here like me. And the beautiful thing is, you know me. And this is a remarkable experience, I think, that is so, it's such a treasure for me, that I am known. I know that my dark past has become my greatest asset, and I know yours has become your greatest asset for you. And I promise you, my dark past is dark. And things that involve the neglect of children and terrible relationships and all of this kind of stuff, neglecting my parents, etc. Everything. I know that you have, if not the same story, at least a very significant aspect of it that we share. And I think, and this is revealed to us out of our bitter experience. So by the time we start moving into step 2, we got page 40, and this is all going to make sense when I get to the end. But when I get to page 46, it talks about our own conception, however inadequate is sufficient to make the approach. So what I want to do sometimes, a lot of times when I'm in AA, and a lot of people I hear wanting to do this, is I want to cherry pick the steps. I want to say, this is, I want to reach in and grab that 10th step, and I want to reach in and grab that 12, and I want to reach in and grab that 3rd step. And while that's all very good, I get that all of these steps stand alone. When we put them all together and come up with an 11-step practice, it is breathtaking for me. So I want to, and each one builds on the next one, builds on the next one, builds on the next one. But like I said, I have to clear away the obstacles in my path. And I do that by working the steps. So when I get, it says, by the time on page 55, it says, we can only clear the ground a little bit. And if our testimony, let me get there. If our testimony helps sweep away prejudice, enables you to think honestly, encourages you to search diligently within yourself. I mean, this is remarkable language to me. Then if you wish, you can join us. If you wish. I got a sponsor who loves to say, you know what? It's real simple. If you want what I have, you'll do what I do. That's it. And if you don't, you won't. And so, but with this, you can join us on the broad highway. And with this attitude, you cannot fail. The consciousness of your belief is sure to come to you. And then we get over to 57, and it says, that God, it says, he's come to all who have earnestly sought him. And that's like a little spoiler alert, because when we get to the 11th step, we're going to talk sought through prayer and meditation. As I go through, and it's being convinced that any life run on self-will can hardly be a success. Am I convinced of that? I have to really ask myself that, because, all of us in here are movers and shakers. Let's face it. We all see ourselves, as quite accomplished, and, we can make things happen. We have to make things happen because we had to hustle so hard, because we were so completely full of, and so we are slick. And, I don't even know where I was going with that, but we are. But so can I be convinced? I have to ask myself, am I convinced that any life run on self-will can hardly be a success? And, when I got here, I was like, yeah, maybe for you, but not so much for me. Today, I'm convinced a lot. And I would love to tell you that I'm convinced 1,000% of the time. But you know what? Sometimes I go, God, I'll take this one. And you know how that always ends up. So, by the time I'm getting to steps 4 and 5, I've begun to develop a practice of self-evaluation. Notice I didn't say a practice of self-evaluation, because what I'm learning to do in these steps is honestly look with another person's help at my resentment, my fear, my sex conduct, my dishonesty, my character defects. And I'm beginning to have a clear understanding, which is to me, the beginning of humility of who and what I really am and what I'm capable of. And as I look at this fourth and this fifth step, it ain't pretty. And I had spent, my story is I got here and, because of the things I had done, especially around my children while I was drinking, I couldn't be honest about it. And it is not that I wanted to lie to you, but most importantly, I had to lie to me. Because it was so painful and so shameful and so horrifying when I sobered up enough to go, oh my God, what those babies endured, what people who, talk about a tornado, what they endured with what I am. Now, I'd love to say that the moment I sobered up, all was great, but that's not been my experience either. And I don't think it's been yours either. This is a journey, for God's sakes, isn't it? And and it can often be a pretty painful one, and it can also be a most miraculous one. Thank God for that. So anyway, I'm beginning to be the practice of self-evaluation, and then by the time I get to 71, it says to me, at the end of how it works, it says, "We hope you are now convinced that God can remove whatever self-will has blocked you off from him." See how often we're talking about being blocked. And if you've already made a decision and an inventory of your growths or handicaps, you've made a good beginning. And that's where it tells me that that being so, you've swallowed and digested some very large chunks of truth about yourself. And so, thank God that these, I'm so, once again, enchanted with our stories that we share with one another. I'm all about, I don't have a whole lot to offer you, but experience, strength, and hope. I can tell you what I did. I can tell you what people taught me, and more importantly, what they showed me. One of the words I'm always looking for in the book is showed. People showed us, or we saw, because I have to see that it happened for you in order for me to begin to believe that it can happen for me. If you give me an academic proposal about it, it doesn't have any teeth. It has no depth or weight. But if you tell me what it is you experienced and how you walked through it, and show me that, now we got something. Now I got something. I got something I hold on to. I have a gal that I've sponsored, and for a good while now, when I started to sponsor her, she said that she was absolutely atheist and she had no desire to change that. And I'm like, I don't care. This is your journey, sweetheart. And one of the things she says after a few months of this, of me not arguing with her, just letting her have whatever experience she needed to have, she said, "You know what? I believe that you believe. And that is the power." I'm like, okay, let's keep going. Let's keep going. So it's that power of being able to see someone have that experience, for me. So by the time I get to 72, it says, this is where it says, having made our personal, and the fifth step, having made our personal inventory, what are we going to do about it? Right? We've been trying to get a new attitude, a new relationship with our Creator, and discover the obstacles in our path. Here it is. We've admitted certain defects. This is step 5. We've ascertained in a rough way what the trouble is, and we've put our finger on the weak items in our inventory. And so, of course, now these are about to be cast out. This is, it's interesting when we cherry pick it like this. it's so incredibly powerful for me. But then we were going to roll it all together. Watch what happens. I'm a big fan of when I get to page, we talk a lot about self-esteem in here. And frankly, I had none when I got here. And what is that egomaniac with an inferiority complex? You bet, toggling between the greatest in the world or the absolute worst. And when I get to page 77, to me, it has the greatest description, the greatest definition, although not dictionary definition, of self-esteem. And at the very top, it says, at the moment, we're trying to put our lives in order. But this is not an end in itself. Our real purpose is to fit ourselves to be of maximum service to God and the people about us. If I carry this through, there is no way I cannot have self-esteem, because my self-esteem is coming from God. And that's the only time that it's ever worked for me. Anytime I'm trying to get my self-esteem from you, I am as neurotic as an inbred poodle. I got to get you to like me. What are you thinking about me? I become completely obsessed with myself. What do you think about me? Are you talking about me? Are you talking good about, that whole thing we do? And it's just like, oh, and I can't understand why I just feel terrible all the time and basically want to vomit. But when I'm trying to get this from God, then you cannot shake me off of, you cannot knock me off my feet. You cannot shake my foundation, because my foundation comes from the one who has all power. And if you'd have told me that's what I was going to come here and find out and do and try to practice, 34 years ago, I probably would have run screaming with my hair on fire. I'm so glad you feed it to me in little bitty bites, like a little bird, just peep, peep, peep. So as we continue moving through the steps, we get to 83, and it has this beautiful thing that says, there's a long period of reconstruction ahead, and here I am, I'm still in 8 and 9, right? Yeah. So there's a long period of reconstruction ahead. We must take the lead. That's another one of those things that says over and over and over, the inventory is ours and not the other man's, and we must disregard the other man entirely. And, we're the ones that have to take the action. We're the ones that make the demonstration, right? And how much time did I squander going, well, I'll be nice if he'll be nice first, but I'm not going to be held out to be a sucker, and as if kindness made me a sucker, as if loving someone made me look like a fool. I had so many old ideas, and all of those old ideas is what blocked me from God. And not only that, it blocked me from you. And I don't want to live like that anymore. So, we are rolling through. And so, by the time, when I get to page 84 and I'm in step 10, right? It says, we have entered the world of the Spirit. It's taken a minute, hadn't it? We had to go through all those steps, but now we've entered the world of the Spirit. And once again, it instructs me that my next function is to grow in understanding and effectiveness. And I love the way the book just lays out all of these qualifications and this gentleness about it, where it says, this is not an overnight matter. You're not going to win AA tonight, sweetheart. You know what I mean? It's going to take you a long, long time, and it should continue for our lifetime. And I get to continue all the things that I've learned up until this point. Now, so all of that is all well and good. Yay. And so where does that bring me? So theoretically, or presumably, or experientially for me, all this stuff gets cleared out. I was thinking about all of these steps are designed to empty me so that when I get to step 11, I can be filled. And I just love, it's just that beautiful exchange. Here, God, you can have all my gunk. And God gives me all of his love and grace. Whew. And so that to me is what this 11-step practice begins to take shape as. And so I like the way it lays out. And Oz told me that I could tell you what my practice looks like. And I think I got enough time to do it. And of course, I know you guys are wise and smart and have been doing this for a long time. So, but I'm just going to tell you what I do, and it talks about, when we retire at night. It says that first. And I love that because why does it say it first? Well, and I love the legend I've been told is that, well, they're presuming you bought this book in the afternoon. You're going to take it. You're going to read it when you get home. It's going to be evening. So we're going to start with night. I'm like, you know what? That makes as much sense as anything else. I'm going to go with that. And it goes on. And so the way I looked at this for a long time, because I had so many old ideas about God and prayer and there's that great exercise on page 47 that says, do not let any prejudice you may have prevent you from asking yourself what spiritual terms mean to you. And so I had all this prejudice around, spiritual terms. And so, what I thought the 11th step evening review was about was making me feel bad about myself, because then when I get down to the bottom, it's like, oh, now I got to ask God for forgiveness again. I'm not worthy. And all of that. And it's like, that's not what it's doing at all for me today. And so it says, when I retire at night, I constructively review my day. And for me, the way I go about it is I typically do this in the morning, the evening review. I know, there's still a rebel part of me. Okay. So I'm going to do this in the morning, basically because I'm cooked by nighttime. I'm just cooked. So, what I do is I wake up bright and early and I look at what I did yesterday. So I constructively review that. And like I said, it used to be this kind of punitive, onerous, burdensome, another way to make me feel bad about myself. When I began to look at it as an exercise in prayer, when I really read that step that says, sought through prayer and meditation to improve my conscious contact with God as I understood him. This is how I seek. This is one of the many ways I seek, but one that's so significant for me. So it's not where I go, where was I resentful? Marty, where were you resentful today? And then I go, oh, yes, I was terrible about that today. My husband really annoyed me, again. I asked God to show me where he believed, and I'm just going to use a pronoun he, where he thought I was resentful. And I ask that question and I wait for the answer. And then I do that. God, where was I selfish? And I wait, and I'm writing it all out. No, I don't use an app. I don't do any of that. I'm old school. I got a pen and a piece of paper, and I got a little notebook that I write, and I also date it. I date it because I'd love to tell you that I've done it every morning for the last 34 years, and that's just not true. And I'm going to tell you why. And I had this experience just this week, the last couple of weeks. I had been in conversation with my sponsor. I had, y'all don't ever have this, but I had a sponsee that had been highly dishonest with me, and I felt betrayed, right? And I won't go into the details, but I'm sure nobody's ever had a sponsee where you felt betrayed, but I did. And I was really hurt and pretty dadgum angry about it, to tell you the truth. Now, my sponsor gave me direction. Like, I'm going to get to that. I'm going to get to that real quick. Well, quick. There's quick and there's quick. And I ended up sitting on it. And then, and then there was somebody, that I was, giving money to on a monthly basis. And long story short, but in lengthy conversations with my sponsor, it became obvious to me that I needed to stop doing that I needed to stop paying. Now, this involved two very difficult conversations for me. And I foot dragged. I really did. And I tell you that story is because it so impacted my 11th step practice. You see, because I got a lot of self-obsession going about these conversations I needed to have. And then not only that, but I would revisit that betrayal, and I would revisit how much money I'd been given, and I would over and over and over. And so all of that self-reliance that went with all that, for me, made prayer and meditation uninteresting, uninspiring, and I didn't do it for a few days. And let me tell you, it showed. I get neurotic. I get insecure. I'm short-tempered. All the things that happen when I'm not being diligent in my spiritual practice. That's my experience. So, once again, I'm asking God for these directions. Where was I dishonest, God? Where was I afraid? And what I love about writing it in a notebook and dating it is so I can see the gaps when I've been, let's call it spiritually unfit, where I didn't take advantage of the practice. I can also see that that gal that I work with has been on my resentment list, or has been on my resentment in my evening review or my morning review for weeks now, or she'll just keep showing up. She'll keep showing up. I'm like, wow, I can go back a year. Guess who was on it? She was. It's like, not killing it. I'm not killing it, So I ask these questions. Have we kept something to ourselves? Not usually. I love talking, and I love someone who'll listen. So were we kind and loving toward all? Toward all? You mean everyone? Even that guy who cut me off in traffic today? He may have been, I thought he was going to hit me. So there may have been some bad words. Just because he didn't hear them doesn't mean they don't count. What could we have done better? And this is my personal favorite. Were we thinking of ourselves most of the time? Yeah, for sure. Or were we thinking of what we could do for others? Sure. But I promise you, I'd love to say, you know what? I thought of others all day long, but it's like, what about me? Back to me, many, many times. And then what's so important for me is after, it says, don't drift into worry, all these things. After making our review, we ask God's forgiveness and inquire what corrective measures should be taken. It kind of chokes me up because, I'm not asking God's forgiveness for what I've done, for calling that guy names when he nearly, when he was going to kill me, and for not thinking of others and being resentful at that woman and feeling betrayed and all of this. That's not what I'm asking forgiveness for. Right? But when I write out this evening review in this fashion, it's so evident to me that all of this behavior I engaged in throughout the day separates me from God. And that's what I'm asking forgiveness for. I'm asking forgiveness for the separation, right? God thinks I'm wonderful just the way I am, and is very, very aware that I'm a human being having a human experience, and that's all I'm ever going to have on this planet. You know what I'm saying? But man, does God want me close. Does God want me close? And that's what I'm asking forgiveness. And so my corrective measures, and I can do it a couple of different ways. I can do it in a two-way prayer format. I can, once again, I'm asking God, What are the corrective measures you would like me to take? And they inevitably come back around to how I can become closer to my Creator, where I can become respectful and courteous and helpful to my fellow man. And that's a beautiful, beautiful thing. Nathan has started screen sharing 5 minutes. Okay. Thank you very much. On Awakening, we talk about the 24 hours ahead. And there's in the next couple of pages, it's like we ask all throughout this literature. And that's just praying. We're just praying, and asking God to direct my thinking. Especially praying that it be divorced from self-pity, dishonest, or self-seeking motives. I wonder what a whole day would be like if I didn't do that, because it's never happened for me. Maybe for you, probably Ali does it all the time. Our thought life's on a much higher plane when our thinking is cleared of wrong motives. My gosh, and of course, the rest of this writing, is it talks about as we went through all of as I went through all of the other steps, or some of the other stuff, to bring me to this point where I am capable of seeking through prayer and meditation, being clear enough to be inspired by a prayer life, by a meditation life. It gives me these beautiful things. What used to be the hunch or the occasional inspiration gradually becomes a working part of the mind. Not instantly, but gradually, through more practice. And this is the one that gets me to this very day. It says, being still and experienced and having just made conscious contact with God, it's not probable we're going to be inspired at all times. So if you are not sitting on a pillow in the lotus position for 3 hours a day, give yourself a break. You know what I mean? If you are, good for you, but the experience I had of being uninspired and feeling flat in my prayer life, what a wonderful experience that has given me. Because the next time when I go uninspired and flat in my prayer life, you better believe I'm going to be looking for those causes instead of going, I don't know, just not feeling it, so we might pay for this presumption that I will be inspired at all times and all sorts of absurd actions and ideas. Also when I got here, I was exhausted. I think you probably were too. And a lot of my sobriety, I have found myself exhausted, because I'm running the show. And, we get through that pause or agitated, as we go through the day, we pause when agitated or doubtful. Yeah, of course. And ask for the right thought or action. And we constantly remind ourselves we're no longer running the show, humbly saying to ourselves many times each day, thy will be done. We are then in much less danger, as you all know this passage so well, much less danger of excitement, fear, anger, worry, self-pity, or foolish decisions. We become much more efficient. Now, who doesn't want that? I know I do. We don't tire so easily. Although I was talking with Therese earlier, like, I'm an old woman. It is dark at 6:30. I need to be in bed now, but I'm here. We do not tire so easily, for we're not burning up energy foolishly as we did when we were trying to arrange life to suit ourselves. It works. It really does. And so when it gives me that paragraph after what we've talked about tonight, we alcoholics are undisciplined. So we let God discipline us in the simple way we've just outlined. That's 1 through 11, and I'll finish with this. When I have done all of these things, cleared the obstacles in my path, get the things away from me that are blocking me, and all this stuff, and I've developed this practice of self-evaluation, and I've developed this prayer and meditation life, there is no way I cannot do step 12. It just happens. So because that's who I've become, and that is all I got. Thank you.
Alice, come on up.
Hi, family. My name is Alice. I'm a grateful member of Alcoholics Anonymous. Marty, what a beautiful, beautiful share. I took great notes. I took great notes. And for anybody that's not a note taker in Meet, and I encourage you to do that, because there's some things I got out of what you said tonight that are going to be little tweaks in my own practice. But here's the question I have. And this will tell you a lot about me. I'm almost embarrassed to ask. How do you feed people in little bits, man? Like sometimes talking to me is like drinking out of a fire hose. So tell me, my sponsees are cracking up. Tell me how. Tell me how you did that.
Oh, 1 second. Unmute yourself there.
Okay. Feed little bits. Well, I just ask a lot of questions. I ask a lot of questions and I don't have a lot of answers. If that makes any sense. So it's just, I want you to feed yourself your own little bit. Does that make sense?
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Alice. Howard and Kathy, come on up. Oh, sorry, 1 second. There you go. Can you unmute yourself, Howard and Kathy? There you go.
Thank you, Philip. Thank you, Marty, and everyone who makes this meeting possible. My name is Kathy. I'm an alcoholic, and thank you so much for your transparency. Marty, my question is, do you do anything along with your reading in the morning and your nightly review in the morning? Like, do you have any kind of quiet time or anything?
Oh, for sure. Yes, for sure. I have some spiritual books that are not the big book that I enjoy. Whether it's poetry or, I'm a fan of Mary Oliver. I'm a fan of Thomas Merton. I'm a fan of, all kinds of different things. So, I'm the type of person who has difficulty driving the same way to work every day. So I don't want to read the same thing every day. I've sponsored a woman who does precisely the same thing every single day with the same literature for 25 years. And it works for her. And it would not work for me. But that's what I love so much about this is we get to find a God of our understanding, our own understanding, and we get to find a practice that speaks to us. So yes. And some meditation as well, for sure. Good question.
Thank you so much, Kathy. Allie H., come on up.
Hi again, Marty. Kathy sort of stole my question a little bit. Good question, but I'm going to ask the same thing from the big book where it says there are many helpful books. Also, suggestions about these may be obtained from one's priest, minister, or rabbi. This line here: be quick to see what religious people are right. Make use of what they have to offer. Have you ever been moved to follow another religious or spiritual path along with the big book? And could you just talk about that if you have been at all?
Oh, sure. Yes. I mean, I've been here a while. So there was a time, early in my sobriety where I taught Sunday school at the Catholic Church. I'm not doing that today. But like I said, I love contemplative prayer. I love centering prayer. I'm a big fan of that. I dabble with two-way prayer, although it kind of makes me feel sheepish at times, but for sure. So I like to do, my writing, and then I, will take, 15, 20 minutes to meditate in quiet with the contemplative prayer.
Thank you, Allie.
Mm-hmm.
And S., come on up.
Hi, Ann Alcoholic. Marty, thank you very much. I love when I get really, really strong and powerful messages, but still laugh, like in a really good sense of humor, but they come across. I'm not sure that this is a really great question, but it's something I wanted to ask. You had said that if we fit ourselves to be of maximum service to God, self-esteem will return. So my question is, so if you think about that and you want to be of service where does the fine line go over self-esteem to pride? like, oh, I'm being, of service, like, you know,
Yeah,
how
that's
does
a
that
great question.
not happen?
Yeah, that's a great question. I have a fellow that I've been sponsoring for a long time, and he tells this story where he was a member of the Atlantic group in Manhattan, and that he wasn't really doing anything like as far as the program, but he had what he called vanity sponsees, and they would all sit on the right row at the Atlantic group, And I love that description of vanity sponsees. I'm not really doing it for anything other than vanity and pride. So, and I have to be careful of that, for sure. Well, around here, we like to call it flexing. Sometimes you just flex your sobriety. And, so, that's for me another reason why sponsorship is so important. And, because my sponsor sees through all of that for me. And I love that, if I start to get a little puffed up, and she does it with a beautiful arm around my shoulder and a gentleness and a lot of humor. It's like, well, aren't you just the belle of the ball today, or queen of the poop house kind of thing? And so it's like, oh yeah. So I also want to make really sure that I'm doing all of these things out of a love for God, and not so you'll think I'm great, right? And that's where the self-esteem comes from for me. Because when I'm trying to demonstrate the love of God, then of course I'm going to be helpful, right? Because that's what, Thomas Merton has a wonderful prayer that I say all the time, that is, God, I don't know what your will for me is, but I hope that my desire to do so pleases you. And it's like that says it all for me. So I hope that's helpful.
Thank you so much, Ann. David L., coming up, brother. Good to see you.
Thank you, Philip. David, Love Alcoholic. Hi, Marty. Good to see you.
See you too.
Wonderful, wonderful. I just have a quick question for you. You say you dabbled in two-way prayer. I started two-way prayer at my sponsor's urging about 3 years ago, and was actually part of a two-way prayer group. So I was really doing it religiously every single day. But in the last few months or so, it's gotten really difficult because at this point in my life, with my life situation, I don't do a lot wrong. And, I don't have a lot going on, you know what I mean? And so maybe you could share an experience you've had. You said you dabbled in it, but, and I just wanted to say one other thing too. We talk about different ways to look at step 11. The 12 and 12 says it's an individual adventure. And I love that line. That means I can do anything I want as long as I get closer to God.
Yes. I heartily agree with that, it's in the seeking. It doesn't say, I found God through prayer and meditation. It says I sought to improve my conscious contact. So, and in so doing, I can find whatever, but I mean, and we could talk about that for the rest of our life. But, like I said, sometimes it's just my experience. I know people who are great practitioners of two-way prayer. And for me, it's just like when I sit and I try to be quiet and I try to, try to hear what God is saying, I will sometimes get confused. Is that God's voice? Is it my voice? And, am I trying to run that show too? Cause I do love to run a good show. And so, so, that's why I more am a dabbler rather than a real practitioner of it. That's just my experience. I don't know if that's helpful.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much, David. My apologies to everyone who has their hand up, but we are close this portion of the question and sharing portion.
Philip, we have 5 minutes. We go to 9, brother.
We go to 9?
Yeah, we go to 9 o'clock, brother. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Well, I'm glad. Nanad, please. Come on up, brother. My apologies.
Hi, everybody. My name is Nanad. Just short and sweet. Marty, thank you so much I relate to your stories in a lot of ways. Recently, with doing these nightly prayers, it's been a struggle for me. And I'm like you said, where you like to take a different path all the time to get to work. That's my experience. And my question is, trying to live this spiritual life and meditate more and be one with God and find God in my way. I have a hard time keeping that routine, and I'm able to see it as black and white. When I'm not doing my part, what happens to my life? And when I am doing my part, what happens to my life? So if there's anything that you can suggest, because often I'm not even in the same room. I sleep in different areas of my girlfriend's house or my parents' room or my kids' room, so I'm bouncing around. So I don't really have a set place to meditate. So I'm just wondering if there's anything that you can kind of help me to have more of a routine. That's it.
Well, that's a great question. There's so many different forms of meditation. One of my favorite is a walking meditation. I live out in the country, so I can walk a long way, and I don't always, but I can. And so, there's some great information on walking meditations. There's, you can meditate anywhere. It's like, I have been at times where I was extraordinarily rigid. It had to be a certain way. The dog couldn't bark and the husband couldn't come in, all of this kind of stuff, which is not meditation at all. That's just control. You know what I mean? And so, the more I practice, the better I get at it. And the better I get at it, the more I learn. And it's just one of those things. It like I said, I'm not going to sprinkle pixie dust on my head and be there. I've got to practice it. That's why we say practice so many times. But keep up the good work. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much to that. Grateful Bob, come on up.
Here we go. Yeah, thanks, Marty. That was awesome. Oops. I'm unmuted, aren't I?
Yep.
Yes, you're
okay.
right.
You're saying, okay, sorry. Yeah, Marty, that was just great. I got a lot out of it. I got all kinds of notes here, but I had a couple of things. One of them, and you may have answered it about two-way prayer. I'm not sure. You said something about feeling sheepish with it. So I'll ask it alongside the question that is really getting at me. In the constructive review of the day, you asked for, well, number one, you asked God what he saw. I think that's awesome. And then you asked for forgiveness for separation from God. And that's, I'm familiar with that one from Richard Rohr. That's really where I'm looking for you to drill down. If you want to talk about being sheepish, I love two-way prayer, but I also haven't been practicing it. So there you go. Thanks.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm more of a dabbler. I'm not, certainly I'm not an expert on any of that, but, I just, what works for me is I ask a question and sit quietly. And sometimes things come, and sometimes I think about the Cheerios I'm going to eat in a minute. And sometimes I, start worrying about work, and it's constantly bringing myself back. And with contemplative prayer, there's always a sacred word that you use, and it brings me, I use that, I can employ that word anytime. And the word I use is love, just remembering, because it's not, as you all know, it's not where I'm going to be shut off here, And so the two-way prayer for me is just trying to listen through the noise for me. And that's why I feel sheepish about it, because it can get really noisy for me. And so I'm like, is it live or is it Memorex? Is it me or is it God? And that's why, I'm a dabbler for sure.
Thank you. And the separation from God, that was the other one I was drilling down.
Yeah.
Yeah. You asked for forgiveness for separation from God.
Yes, I do. Because I've had when I look at the review that I've written, it's clear that all of that behavior I've engaged in, which is all self-will behavior, is what separates me from God. And that's, when I have that quiet time, that prayer meditation, I'm so aware, or become so aware of how much I yearn to be in God's presence, right? And so that yearning brings me into that place of the stark realization of the separation and the yearning to reconnect. And it's always there for me. Yeah.